Evening, everyone. Good evening, Maryland. We are joined today by House Minority Whip Christopher Adams. Christopher Adams represents the greatest part of Maryland, the Eastern Shore, where Ocean City is. He represents Dorchester County, Snapper's Restaurant, and all the great counties on the shore. Welcome to our show. Our host is Mark Unkefer and Jackie Saxton. Take it away, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Dwight. Proud resident of Montgomery County.
Happy to be here tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you. I mean, obviously, it's a great honor to have our minority whip joining us tonight. And I know we have a lot of great topics that we're going to talk about. But we can start off. Mark, you have the first question.
Sure. Well, one of the things that's unique about you, Delegate, is that you have a background that we wish a lot more delegates had, which is you're a business owner and have been in business, family business, and what have you. Could you talk a little bit about what that's like? Because it does seem, forgive me, I don't think there, among our Montgomery County delegation, I don't think there are any business owners, and there really is a lack of familiarity with what it's like to be in the marketplace in Maryland.
Right. So thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight and share with you. I probably represent one of maybe a handful, maybe 4 or 5 business owners in the legislature. I'm a pure business owner who, coming into Annapolis, one of my colleagues said, "You're sort of a fish out of water, Chris," and that's exactly what we need. We need people that are not politicians, have been out of public service, who understand the difficulties and why government has always a solution, but they rarely actually fix the problem. Actually come into Annapolis and try to articulate the visions of the business community, how we, seek to, help employees, how we help our community, and reminding all of our members in the General Assembly, especially many of your colleagues that represent Montgomery County, the importance of, the business community. And Mark, my foray into politics actually predates running for office. I fought our Maryland's Department of Labor back in 2013. Then Delegate Kelly Schultz worked with us, and we passed a bill to unwind a flatly unconstitutional bill that was a law created by Tom Perez and his Secretary of Labor when he came through. And that bill, as a trademark of a socialist who is advocating, policy, is that we will treat the business owners guilty until they can prove themselves innocent. So when we were manhandled by the Department of Labor, we recognized a couple of truisms here. One, that we could win our issue not in a court of law only, because we could have done that, but rather we wanted to make change in Annapolis. The law was fatally flawed. And so we came to Annapolis as a group of businesses and honestly made a real policy change. It's one that endures even today, is this idea that if the government is going to pass regulations, pass policy, that we need to create bright line, clear paths to compliance with law. We need to make those laws workable. And then I think you'll find that most business people like myself, we want to comply with law. We want to be honest brokers, honest players in the marketplace. And so with all those things in place, we fixed something. Kelly Schultz, who is certainly one of our candidates coming forward to run for governor, was our partner in making that law change. So with that came the door that opened. My then delegate, Addie Eckhart, ran for Senate, and someone said to me, "Chris, these doors only open, so often. If you wanted to take Annapolis and then, actually work on the other side of the testimony table, do it now. You may never get another chance to do it." So 6,000 doors later, I won an election, and I'm actually serving with Derek Davis, who's the chair of Economic Matters Committee. He was the chairman at the time who accepted our plea, and now I'm on that side of the street. Have enjoyed that work for the past 7 years. So thanks for bringing that up. I think it's important that we have business people that have the background and actually have a bit of anger for how government treats us.
That's an inspiring story. Of course, the flip side to that is that Tom Perez got into the governor's race, right? Just now.
So I brought that up for a reason. I was hoping for the segue. There are a few people in the Democrat Party who I think, draw the ire of those of us that are paying attention as to how dramatically progressive and socialist Tom Perez is. I don't think he would argue on the principle that he's a communist. I think he is so far to the left. I mean, when Obama nominated him as the labor secretary, they weren't using the word secretary, they were using the word czar. It's like you have the environmental czars, and Tom Perez was the labor czar. They meant it. This is a person who believes in the dominance of government, the consolidation of bureaucracy. And while it'll sound pretty on paper, and he will certainly say things in the front of the media, don't mistake what this man is willing and capable of doing when given the power. He ran the Democrat Party, in my humble opinion, into the ground. I mean, he was the DNC chair for a number of years. And were it not for a pandemic-inspired election with some very unusual electoral strategies, I don't see them having won the presidential race. And it'll be very curious whether he gets through the primary, because he's the kind of candidate, frankly, that gets through a primary, not the more moderate, not the more reasonable and rational Democrat, but rather it becomes the progressives who come out of the primaries. It's happened twice since I've been elected, with Anthony Brown and then Ben Jealous. But you bring somebody like him forward, how rich would it be for him to be the past DNC chair, to watch Republicans take over the House of Representatives, the U.S. Senate, at the same time that he's trying to be the governor for the state of Maryland? I say to Tom Perez, go for it.
So along the lines still of you being a business owner, you probably have more sympathy than I would say most, if not all, of the other members of our state legislature on how hard it was for businesses during the pandemic being shut down. So what was that like from the inside perspective there of what could we have done better for businesses, or did we go about it the right way?
Right. That to me, and this is going to take me a minute to articulate this. I think it's important. Your question is probably one of the most important questions of the past year, and maybe the past 5 or 10 years, because we watched our governor use the executive order in ways that I don't believe were intended. And so do I now, as a Monday morning quarterback, look back at this and say, well, was it the right policy? And I'm not prepared to make that statement. I believe that the legislature is the one that creates the laws. The governor then, in fact, executes the laws of the land. We probably should have met as a legislature. I don't know that I would have liked it. I don't think we would have liked the policies that came from that, but that would have been the proper course. As a business owner, then the very first, when you start talking about shutting the businesses down, our company, and we're a small business, but most companies simply don't have the capital to just stop, right? So if we're still trying to keep people employed, if we're still trying to pay bills, so I would say the first 30 days after this shutdown, the question was, do they really mean it? I mean, are they really going to shut us down? I'm in the construction trades. I'm not going to talk about my private business in a specific way, but just know that I'm in the contracting industry. And look, if they would have shut construction down for the sake of the safety of the workplace, think about the banking, the lending, the employment, people that would have lost their jobs, who would have lost the skill. And so that would have been untenable. I do think then, looking back, that most of the businesses, they try to keep open through the lens of the essential industry, essential infrastructure needs, and then some general acceptance of the fact if we shut an industry down, we may never bring it back, right? And so to that end, and to politely discuss, what the governor did, I mean, he made 40 amendments plus or minus to his executive order. He was able to do it with flexibility, with the ability to add to, take away from, so I don't think the legislature would have been able to do that. If you were a restaurant owner, you definitely needed the government to help forward fund the PPP loans, the different grant programs that were coming through the Department of Commerce at the time. These were essential elements of keeping these business owners whole. And, we sit here today as a country and then as a state of Maryland that I'm going to say got through this much better than we ever thought we were going to if you would have asked me this time, last year. And we were listening to our Board of Public Works, the Board of Revenue estimates, writing our budget down hundreds of millions of dollars. And, we knew going into session last year that we were going to have some major budget problems. Well, guess what happened? We go into session this year and, okay, so the federal government gave us $4 billion. We walked out of this with a budget that's going to be fully funded and structurally balanced until 2026. There's no way we would have been able to predict that this time last year. So we can applaud, I think, the ability of the governor and certainly, the partners in the federal, agencies and being able to keep our country from falling apart under this time. Remembering that we were also going through an election, cycle that was tearing the country apart on social policies and just so much. But it does, at the end of the day, speak to how dynamic our republic is, how when the power is in the hands of the people and not all in the bureaucracy, and truly it has come to the consumer, the employees that went to work every day, especially in hazardous conditions where they were concerned for their health. I mean, our country and our state got through this because of the people, right? Because of everyone collectively. And that's exciting because that shows how enduring our republic is. Our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution speak to, limited government and also the power of the people to self-determine. And I look back at this, and I think we will look back at it a generation from now as saying that, our citizens survived and actually did everything that we could have ever asked our people to do, which is to maintain responsibility to the best of our ability, get through this together as a society, and then come out the other end, which, we might get to this because of how the current job market is, where I actually think we're in pretty darn good shape. I mean, I think we've got a lot of things going good for us. So I hope I answer your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
The way that I answered it was to not necessarily tangle with what happened a year ago, because Monday morning quarterback doesn't help now. You're probably more interested in what are we going to do now? What's it going to look like?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, economic recovery. Now that we're at the point where I know Maryland has announced we've gone days where we've had no COVID-related deaths, which is a huge achievement. So yeah, now the full focus is how do we get our economy back to how strong it was prior to the pandemic? So I think you answered that beautifully.
So talk a little bit about the unemployment challenges. I know one of the issues that has gone back and forth is whether or not to have this additional money that was brought in by the federal government, that was sort of subsidizing above and beyond the normal unemployment rate. The governor has taken that away. The Democrats in the legislature have been pushing back. What's your take on that?
Well, so I have a quote, and I have, I represent 4 counties. And I've presented in front of the 4 Chamber of Commerces, so this quote's not new, but it'll be relevant. Ronald Reagan in 1986 said that, I've often said that the only government program once launched that is nearest to the thing that's eternal life is a government program, right? So what I'm trying to say to you is that once we create these programs, how do you get rid of them? And this is like that example. This time last year, the $300 enhanced benefit was meaningful. People that were not working, the unemployment is not a fully, it doesn't replace 100% of a person's earnings. And so people needed the support. So this time last year, yes, let's have that. What the Democrats were trying to do, and I'm in Economic Matters Committee, we had a briefing on it about a month ago, is they were trying to establish this idea that we needed to continue it. I listened to a committee member of ours who's a Montgomery County representative, who's a socialist, start talking about macroeconomic policy on this. And I was like, I said, stop, wait, this isn't about policy. This is about supply and demand. We have more jobs unfilled than we have people try to create them. This isn't about, and this is me, Chris Adams, talking. This isn't merely about whether we're going to extend a unnecessary $300 benefit. It's about the fact that when people lost their jobs this time last year, they're not finding that same job now that they're trying to come back into the workforce. So this is a mismatch between, their skills and what jobs are available. The heartbreak is that while the Democrats continue to advocate for money in people's pockets, what we really ought to be doing is saying that the market for jobs right now is better than I can remember. And the money that we as business owners are paying for skilled labor is higher than we've paid for the skilled labor in a long time. You've got people paying bonuses for people to come to work. And I'm simply saying, and I think our Department of Labor in Maryland is ready to do this, is to help people get the skills they need, get them on their feet, get them on the ladder to success, and not create, and I kind of messed up my Reagan quote, but not create this eternal government program that, the Democrats really want to take unemployment insurance under this kind of crisis and create like this permanent entitlement. That's not what unemployment is. It's a bridge between two jobs. We all pay into it. It's a benefit that we all can, if needed, use to get us through a handful of weeks until we find the next job. The Democrats would love to see it turn into a formal welfare. Well, no, we're not going to allow that, nor can the state of Maryland afford it. I mean, come on. We don't have the ability to print money like the federal government. I'm just saying we can't create $30 trillion debt. We have to live within our means. $300, we just don't have the mandate or the ability to do that. I reject the principal argument the Democrats make, which is that somehow this $300 benefit needs to continue. I turn it on its head and say, why are we not talking to these folks and saying, give a new career a shot? You might find that you're very good at it. And oh, by the way, you'll probably make more money than you were making before. I think it's exciting, right? This is the marketplace for people to take advantage of, their God-given talents and abilities. Go out, take a risk, take a chance, and watch what America's all about. I mean, this is about ingenuity, the Americans to improvise and make themselves better. This is how we as a country move forward, not having government subsidize and create dependency on these programs. That's the politics of what's going on, and that's where I'm at with that.
So one of the industries I want to touch on a little bit further on that, because you did talk about, learning new skills, maybe going into a new industry. But one of the industries I think that a lot of us have seen firsthand how hard it's been hit is hospitality. I can tell you or at least twice in the past couple of weeks, my brother just got married. We were staying at a hotel in Philadelphia, and I had asked for my sheets to be changed. They said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we're understaffed, so you need to change them yourself." Half the people who checked into rooms, the rooms weren't even clean. You go out to dinner and they're saying it'll be a 2-hour wait. I'm sorry, we're understaffed. We don't have enough people to open the restaurant today. Mm-hmm. So it seems like, at least from what I've been reading, a lot of people are moving away from hospitality post-pandemic because they're just like, oh, well, I don't want to do that anymore. So how do we encourage people to return to the hospitality industry? And is there a way to make those jobs more enticing, especially for people who might not have been able to finish up their degree during the pandemic, and hospitality is where they want to go, but they'd rather stay home and collect unemployment?
So this goes back to my, sort of the original, commentary, which is that when certain industries shut down, people didn't stop, in my opinion, working necessarily. They found other employment. My fear of many, when we were this time last year talking about the issues of the day and if shutting down an industry makes sense, is that once you shut it down, and hospitality was shut down. I mean, hotels were by and large shut down. Restaurants were shut down. People found other employment. And so now that the restaurants and the hotels are opening back up, what they're finding is that the people that they were counting on to come back to work, well, guess what? They're doing something else now. I mean, that's actually the American, pathway forward. These jobs can and should be, steps on a ladder towards, better and higher paying, jobs. And it does then come to an essential question that I think you and I, as Republicans, are very well equipped to answer, which is young people looking for their first job, trying to get from an unskilled position to one that is skilled. look, the restaurants and hospitality are the place to do that. Why are young people not engaged and willing to go after those jobs? And look, restaurants and that can be a great second job. It can be a job. Look, I'm a people person. I worked in the restaurant business, and so I think that these are opportunities for people to come into the marketplace and the workforce. And I think that those are the ones that are actually probably more challenging than others who might already have a family or have a household. Trying to get them into the labor force, because guess what? When I worked in the restaurant business, I don't know how much I made, relative to inflation and the value of the dollar back in 1990, 1992. But, today, I'm here to tell you that restaurants and people in the hotel business are paying good money for these jobs. And they don't have to be, careers necessarily. I mean, they can be, okay, here's an opportunity, and they're there. Ocean City, right now is, I'm not going to use the word desperate. They're already into their season. So that is a economy built on hospitality and restaurant leisure. And basically what they're telling their clients, not exactly what I'm hearing you, say, but rather, as consumers, just be patient with us, but bring your leisure vacation, also your leisure patience, as you may have to wait a little longer for your dinner. I can't speak for how the restaurants or the hotels are doing it, but I know when I've been staying at hotels, we might stay 3 or 4 nights, and right, they don't do a turn down service. They don't change the towels every night, and et cetera, et cetera. It's once for a stay. Well, I've gotten to the point where I'm not necessarily thinking that's such a bad thing. I get it, I understand it, and you sort of move on. But the answer is to get young folks into the job market, their first job, and we've got to figure out how to do that. Republicans, I think, are right on the minimum wage. I think you put headwinds into things that hurt businesses to do these sort of first job opportunities, get people going. So we'll see how it goes. I have a tendency to think that once we get rid of some of the unemployment benefits that folks are getting, that maybe the ones that are using that more so than others are the people that are younger and maybe don't have the overhead or the expenses.
Delegate, speaking of changing jobs, you've taken on a new job in the legislature as the Republican whip. So tell us a little bit about what that job entails, and how has your life changed as a result of it?
Well, thank you. First off, I applaud Nick Kipke, our minority leader, and Kathy Szeliga, our minority whip. They were our longest serving team in the Republican House of Delegates in our history. They were here for 7 years. I came in under their leadership. At the time we had over 50 members, I think, or maybe it was 50 members in the House of Delegates at Republicans. So, the challenge is to know that, okay, these jobs aren't forever. That they willingly backed away, and they're allowing other leadership to come in, which I think makes good sense. You want to have change. You want to have different ideas. And so, my story is relatively, brief. We're now 42 members in the House of Delegates. Each of our 42 members is qualified and capable of being in leadership in the Republican Party. We would each have our different strategies or different ways of going about, business. But, it takes someone that's willing to do that. Myself and Jason Buckle were one of 2 slates that ran for this, both equally capable, equally respected in the caucus. So Jason and I did win that on the following message that we articulated both to our caucus but also to Republicans in general, which is in Annapolis we suffer from a 2-to-1 disadvantage, Democrat to Republican. And so many of the issues over the 7 years that we've won on as a caucus don't often cut down, Republican versus, Democrat ideology, but they do oftentimes cut down urban versus rural. And so, we, Jason from Allegheny County, myself from, Wacomico, the Lower Shore, the mountains of Western Maryland, the Chesapeake Bay, the Ocean City, we are rural Maryland, who gets ignored fairly regularly by the Democrats. we do good as a party when we take our policies that we all agree on, constitutional conservatism, limited government, low taxes. We do well when we combine that with the idea that rural Maryland is every bit as important as Baltimore City, for example. I hear Democrats often say that we are one Maryland, and they take a lot of pride in saying we're in this together. But what I would argue is that we're not the same. I mean, we are one Maryland, and I get it. I understand what they're saying, but we're not the same, and that we each have our own needs to be met. And as a party, what I'm finding is that the Democrats who have a tremendous amount of sway bring just a very important, self-centered approach to governing that is founded on the idea that somehow or another consolidating power amongst our population centers must always happen, even if it comes at the expense of the rural areas. Now think about what I just said for a minute, because it's important when you think of it as Republicans, because folks in Montgomery County are also in urban centers, so you actually see this firsthand in your politics and policies. But limited government, independence, self-determination are things that we all agree with and we all depend on as conservatives. When you're in a city center, although you are generally interested in government services, infrastructure, mass transit, things like that. And so we as a caucus can win and do win on its merits on the House floor and in committee when we say to Democrats that it just can't be all the time, every day, one way. And with a 2-to-1 disadvantage, it's the best that we can do. Now, as the minority whip, you may be asking, well, what are we going to do to make that better? Because that's the essential job that Jason and I have, which is we've got to do better than be at a 2-to-1 disadvantage. We need to have more members, and we think we can get there. Kathy and Nick showed us in 2014 how to do that. I think we had an unfavorable election cycle in 2018 for reasons that go beyond the scope of the conversation we'll have here. But the challenge is to have an impact on redistricting. We think that as a party, we perform best when people are able to have their voices heard in Annapolis most directly and most locally by their elected officials. So, having single member districts or all districts being represented by 3 members create continuity, they create consistency, but they also give citizens a voice to be heard in Annapolis. I'll give you my example. I represent 4 counties on the Eastern Shore. Many of your Montgomery County Democrats might represent 4 or 5 city blocks, right? So that's the difference. And I'm also in a 2-member district. My colleague, Johnny Moutz, who's from Talbot County, Easton. I'm from Wacomico County and Hebron. I spend a lot of time, an hour and a half away from my front door, representing the district as drawn. Well, so how does that help? And I think I do a good job at it, by the way. Let me say. But how does that help when you want to have representative democracy, when you draw districts that create that sort of distance and equity and voice? So, these commissions that are coming around, they're hearing testimony from many people, but it's 2 main messages. We want to have a more representative map drawn. We want to have single member districts that are designed to better reflect the values of each legislative district. In that, I believe, comes a more moderate form of legislature. I would like to think that's more Republicans, but at the end of the day, I'd be happy with saying that our legislature moderates, because it's being driven right now by many of the far left, very vocal, boisterous, and they're getting a voice because there's such a disadvantage in the legislature. It's incumbent then on the Republican Party to not only stand and deliver on the values of our party and our caucus, but rather increase our membership so we can better balance and better moderate our state, which has to happen. Having a Republican governor, for 8 years has had that effect. It doesn't mean we win every time, all the time, but it does require the legislature to be mindful, to be moderate in certain ways. Think about it: if we could get 55, maybe even 60 members in the Republican caucus and the House of Delegates, it's not enough to win the majority, but it gets us close enough where we can better influence the outcome on policy. And to my last point, then, which is that as the minority whip, my goal is to articulate and develop political positions on the House floor and do it in a way that's persuasive. Much of what we do in Annapolis, we find success in committee. So we want strong membership. We want well-informed members in each of the committees. We are doing some things differently amongst our membership to earlier engage them on issues like Second Amendment, certainly education, healthcare, and the purpose of doing this sooner, but also kind of reinforcing the position points is so when we go into session next year, which is going to be an election year, having a greater degree of success in fighting, elongating debate and discussion on some of the more contentious issues for which we think we can have some success. That's how we get it done in Annapolis. It's a grind. It's a war of attrition in a lot of cases. Democrats don't like to bring bills on the House floor that they're concerned, number one, that they would lose the vote, right? But more importantly, they don't want a bill on the House floor that's going to turn into a mess. And, the Republicans, our caucus, has done just a tremendous job under the circumstances, being well prepared, represented on the facts so that we can win debates on their merits. And as the minority whip, that's my job to help combine votes, get people together, get organized in a way that citizens like you could see on the House floor making an impact. It's exciting. I don't know how long Jason and I will be in leadership. I would like to think that we're going to be highly successful during the next election cycle. But as a business owner, we like challenges. This is a new challenge for me. And I think that the rubber has to meet the road. I have to stand and deliver. We have to perform. Leadership finds a way, and I'm sure Jason and I will find a way. Nick and Kathy have been great in transitioning over. And so we're excited. I think that the national scene is reminiscent of 2013, 2014. I think it's important that we remind, voters of what happens when, Democrats get everything that they want. And the more that we talk about the Supreme Court, the more we talk about, statehood for Puerto Rico or Washington, D.C., all through the lens of political power, right? The Democrats are exerting political power. Are messages that independents, obviously Republicans, but even the Reagan Democrats, the moderate Democrats who are fiscal conservative, who believe in sovereignty of our borders, but also, the state's powers within the context of federalism. There are many Democrats who share those values. You and I do. I mean, it's who we are and how we believe. And so, we as leaders need to make sure that we're speaking, that our audience is not just us, the three here together, and people listening, but rather those that we can persuade. It's exciting.
When you first ran, you were recruited. So you had been involved with an issue and had testified and gotten involved, and you were asked to run, and they pointed out that it was one of those opportunities. So one of the roles that you're going to have as a leader is talking more people like yourself who have real lives to run for the General Assembly. Tell me a little bit about what you're going to tell people about whether or not, why they should run and how they can make a difference.
So let me answer this. Let me answer your question this way. what caused me to run was I was mad. I have a different way of saying it, but for public consumption, I was a very upset, business owner who had the fire in the belly. My politics, I'm a long time Republican, and it never occurred to me to run for, public office. So, somebody like me, was not part of the central committee structure. Was I part of the political structure in my county? Well, the answer is no, I was not. I was a private business owner who did all the things that I needed to do to be successful, but also was a self-starter. Certainly was able to problem solve, to develop relationships. I was a networker. I could communicate. I certainly liked working with customers. And so, to answer your question, I think requires some thought about us as Republicans and where we are seeking our potential candidates, because I don't know that they are showing up at the central committee meetings, at the GOP conventions. They are citizens like you and I who are very mad, who have been disaffected by government in some way. Most business owners, by the way, have been deeply affected by government one way or another. And we do need more business owners in Annapolis. We have relatively few, but it doesn't have to be a business owner. It just needs to be someone who is able to demonstrate a passion and actually be willing to hustle for it. I mean, you got to look, spending money, raising money and then spending it on mailers is not how you win. I mean, we have strategies on what it takes to win, and it takes a deep, personal, long-term effort to meet people, to actually learn about the district that they represent. That's hard work. It took me, it took me about 9 months. I quit work. We have a family business, and I was able to do that, but to do it properly, had to quit work. So to answer let me answer your question then in a different way. Republicans have a tremendous amount of opportunity looking outside of the box, seeking people that are mad, who are upset, and that are willing to learn, go through training, who have the right personality, the right skill, that can communicate with people, which doesn't mean you have to be a good public speaker. That's not what this is about. But you have to be persuasive. You have to be a people person. There are so many people like that in our world who want to be, I think, when asked, be part of the process. That's where I think we'll have some success. I think we need to have a diverse party. I think we need to find ways to open the doors for minority participation. I think our caucus is doing a great job, but we can always do better with female candidates for office. No doubt, watching Kelly Schultz step forward is an exciting opportunity for the state of Maryland. Would love to see her be very successful, because I think she's a terrific candidate, notwithstanding her gender. But the fact that we have a bench of candidates who can demonstrate leadership and conservative values and do it in a persuasive way really does come down to seeking out people and finding their passion in politics. And that's hard work, actually. It's not easy, because I'm as I'm answering your question, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, were it not for the fact that I had to fight our state, would anybody have ever identified Chris Adams as a candidate for office? And I doubt that would have occurred. And that's not a knock on the Republican Party. That's just the reality that us Republicans in leadership, when we're seeking out what the future of our party is going to look like, is going to be as much about going outside of our comfort zone and people that we know and respect and admire, and finding the next generation, young leaders who I think and we all think can represent us for the next 20 to 30 years. And that's exciting work, especially in Maryland, because it takes a special kind of Republican to actually jump in the fray and be part of this process. You have to do it for all the right reasons and know that you're going to lose as many times as you're going to win. But we do it because in our heart, right? We believe in our state of Maryland. that we are a unique place on planet Earth, and it's worth representing and protecting. And that's those folks are the ones that we need to find and be actively pursuing.
So we're coming up on the end of our time. So obviously we want to thank you. I think you gave us some really great insights and some inspiring quotes that we could plug for other things. So we wanted to give you an opportunity in the last 5 minutes to plug anything that you feel like you want to plug, share any parting words of wisdom, anything like that.
My run in office has been, exciting. The Republican Party under our governor, Larry Hogan, now that we're coming toward the end of his 2-year term, I'm often reminded as to what life would have been had he not won, the race in 2014. That would have been Anthony Brown. Had he not won in 2018, that would have been Ben Jealous. And the interesting question that I'm going to leave you and your viewers with is, as we as a Republican Party move forward, what are the things that we need to do to repeat what Governor Hogan did? Some of that is to watch the Democrats do the things that we know that they're going to do, that's going to sway moderates and people that we need to have show up and vote for us in the next statewide election cycle. But it's also going to be who in our party is able to articulate some values that are broad, stroke enough, and at the same time stay true to the Republican values. I think we have enough examples in our party's history of how we go about that. I know that the governor has received a tremendous amount of criticism, and I get it. He's going after some things after this cycle that begs some questions. But look, ambitious, successful politicians are going to do those sort of things. But we immediately, as a Republican Party in Maryland, are now looking at who's going to be the next governor for the state of Maryland, and we are going to have some of the strongest candidates. And look, Kelly Schultz is the only one that I'm aware of. I think Robin Ficker's out there, but these are candidates who deserve our consideration. I think candidates who are willing to listen. Montgomery County has a tremendous part to play in saying here's how it feels being in Montgomery County. And just by the way, we really need the next governor to be a Republican.
Right. I think a lot of Republicans make the mistake of sort of taking the difference that Larry Hogan has made as governor for granted, and don't appreciate just how fundamentally different the state would have been if he weren't in. The fact that we went through so many tax increases and the kind of regulations that inspired you to run, we really, on so many issues, saw 180 as a result of both his election and his reelection.
Senator Eckhart, then Delegate Eckhart, was mentioning to me when she was serving under Martin O'Malley at the time, as I won my office in 2014, she said, "You'll never know what it was like to work as a member of the House of Delegates under a Democrat governor." Let me just leave you with this. I don't want to see us repeat that in my lifetime, which means the next election cycle is the most important one. As a party, I think we need to unify quickly, concisely. We just had our convention recently. I wasn't there for that, but we have a tremendous opportunity if we're aligned correctly, if we all get together and start working in a grassroots level, but also at a state level, and do our very best to repeat what's going on in 2014. And we count on you and Montgomery County and certainly folks in the state who care a great deal about what the outcome of this election is going to be, to remind our candidates, while we understand we're a moderate state, stay true to your conservative values. Find ways to reach compromise where possible, but we've got a lot of hard work ahead. Police reform, and I'm getting ready to go off tangent if we're almost out of time, but the point is it's an exciting time to be a Republican. We have a great slate up and down the line. I know we have some new faces that can't wait to start running, and I can't wait to be part of that process over the next year and a half. And look, thank you for the time to spend with you tonight. I enjoyed it immensely.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us. Those are great words to wrap on. And thank you everybody for watching. We will be back next week with another great guest.